You do not have to be fearless to launch. You don't have to have it all figured out. Welcome back to the Attorney Cheat Code Podcast. My name is Alicia Jones, and I'm a Texas-based attorney. If this is your first time here, then welcome. And of course, if you've been with me before, then welcome back. Make sure to hit that subscribe button so that you can be notified of future episodes. You do not want to miss this. Today marks the first episode of a series we're calling Real Lawyers, Real Launches. We are talking to real attorneys, real firm owners that took the path, that took the leap, that launched their firm. And we're going to talk about how they got there. How have they sustained themselves for however long they've been in practice, whether they like what they're doing or not, and what are their plans for the future? And most importantly, how are they building a firm around their lives versus the firm controlling them? If you've been waiting for a sign to launch, or if you've just been hoping that you're not alone in the struggle, then this is your sign. Make sure to listen in, share, subscribe, and I will see you after the episode.
All right, Ms. Sharon Sanders, thank you so much for being with me. I'm so excited for everyone to hear about your journey. But before we dive in, go ahead and introduce yourself to the people, to the Attorney Cheat Code Podcast community.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me. I'm honored. My name is Sharon Sanders, and I am from basically Dallas, but I've lived in Houston most of my life. I went to undergrad at Prairie View A&M University's Benjamin Banneker Honors College. After I left school, I went to law school, and it doesn't seem like that dramatic of an event, but I actually graduated from college the day before I started law school.
What? How? Are you serious?
Be serious, absolutely serious. I'm ahead of myself, but I forgot about one internship that I did not submit credit for. So they made me, instead of walking in May, they made me resubmit, and I had to wait till August to walk. And I walked in August, and literally the next day, I started at Thurgood Marshall School of Law.
Wow. That's bananas.
Right.
I'm glad it didn't derail your journey, though. So I'm excited for people to hear about from you once you got into law school, and actually even before that. So when you went to law school, did you know that you wanted to have your own firm, or what did you think it was going to be like?
Well, I was young, okay? When I finished undergraduate, I was still young. I was 22 years old. And so I really didn't have a sense of what it was that I wanted to do. Originally, when I went to undergrad, I was studying journalism, because I love to write, I love to learn, and I always said to myself, I want to be in a profession that I'll never know everything, because I'm a person who gets bored easily. So if I'm doing the same task over and over again, I will just, oh my gosh, it would be awful. So I went in for journalism, and then my junior year, I don't know what happened in particular because it was a long time ago, but came to understand that at that time, and this is 30 years ago, at that time, journalists made about $10,000 a year. And I was like, oh no, what else is on the list? What else can I do? I need to pivot. And so I changed the major to political science, and it all just kind of came together. And I just feel like even from that point, God was ordering my steps to do what it is that I do. And so that's kind of how it came about. At that time, I had only known one person who was an attorney, and it was my best friends, their sisters, their father. He was an attorney. So, I mean, I would meet people here and there, but no one really, really close to me was an attorney. And at the time, he was doing like some governmental work or whatever. So I really didn't know what he did. I just knew that it was important. And so that probably was my example, if you will, of what an attorney is. So when I went to law school, especially at such a young age, it was a good and bad thing. It was good because I was going to go ahead and go through and get my education and get it all done with, because sometimes when people say they're going to go back, they get stuck with the money. And it's harder and harder when family comes along and other things come along, other responsibilities and obligations. So it was good that I went through, but on the other hand, a negative for me is I had not seen corporate America. I did not know what it looked like. I did not know the politics of working for a large organization or even a small one for that matter.
Yeah.
And so when I came upon these things in my career, it was shocking and sometimes devastating, but I worked my way through it. Yeah.
Oh, wow. So then once you graduated, you go, you focus, you graduate, you're still pretty young, especially, you started at 23. 22, 23. Once you graduated, what then? Like, did you immediately get that great job and pay off all your student loans?
Not quite. What happened was I started working. I mentioned my best friend's father, and he had some friends who worked with him at the time at the county. Okay, and both of them were older than I was, but they had both had careers either with the county or other companies. And they had gone to law school later in life, and they were starting a firm. And so they asked me to be a part of their firm. So it was a small firm. At that time, it was 2 attorneys. Then my friend's father actually ended up joining the firm with his brother, who was also an attorney. So there were 4 partners, and I was the associate. And that's where I started out. So, starting out, it was wonderful because I had all of this knowledge, this wealth of experience from different sectors, business sectors, governmental sectors, and they were able to pour into me in a way that I don't think I would have gotten any other route because there was a sense of family there, but then there was a sense of we're going to prepare you for the real world. And the real world back then in law looked a lot different than it does right now. I remember every once in a while having to be talked to about, when you, maybe not everybody, but when you go into the courtroom, you need to present a certain type of way. You need to go into these rooms in a certain type of way. You need to, and they taught me how to carry myself. They taught me to have, expectations for myself that I don't think anybody else would have been able to do for me. And they did it in a gentle way, sometimes brotherly, sometimes fatherly, and sometimes as mentor, and sometimes as just a colleague. So it was really special.
Sheesh. It's interesting that you bring that up because I think a lot of that bridging the gap is missing nowadays because you have our older generation, and it seems like a lot of the millennials are those that are now getting their license. They come out and they feel like they already know everything for whatever reason. And I've heard this from from law school professors that they are nervous about the people that are coming out now because there's no humility. And I think that there is a wealth of knowledge to be gained from seasoned attorneys that have had experiences in different fields, like all of that. Like, why not sit at the feet of these people and learn? Yeah, maybe I don't have to enter the courtroom the same way. No pantyhose are required now for the courtroom, but there's still a way to operate. There's still a lot that I can learn and glean from somebody that has been around for a while.
I have a little bit different of a perspective there.
Okay.
I think that it could be that they lack humility, but I think that in some instances, it may be an overcompensation for nervousness, and they don't know how to ask. They don't know how to communicate their needs because their generation is such that they communicated in totally different ways than I may have growing up. And it might not be that they think they know it all, but maybe they're embarrassed even to ask because they think that they're not going to be met with a willingness to help them along. I'd like to think that, because I know that sometimes people's natural reaction to things that may challenge them is defensiveness. And that defensiveness can look like overcompensation. It can look like cockiness. It can look like lack of humility. So I don't know. You let me know.
That's good perspective. Like that really is. I guess because I'm not one of those people, I am going to ask for help. I am going to ask the judge, his clerk, his coordinator, another attorney. I'm going to find somebody. But that makes sense, especially if you feel like everyone around here, they have it all together. Right. And now you come in. Let me me tell y'all young people, and I don't even want to say young people that are transitioning into this type of firm life. We don't know it all. Nobody, the judge doesn't even know it. If you notice, judges will take their code book on the bench with them because they know that they don't know everything in there. So ask for help. Like,
Or they'll
legit
ask
ask for
you,
help.
or they'll recess for a second so they can have someone research it and then come back in 2 weeks and they're like, yeah, and another thing.
Exactly. Exactly. So
Yeah.
then take us back to you're working for this firm and
Yes.
they're mentoring, they're preparing you. Then what? Why'd you leave? It seems like a great place to be and just grow, and then you become the fifth partner.
Well, it didn't work out like that.
Okay.
But what happened is I got a wealth of experience because they were doing other things. So all the work that, they didn't necessarily have time for, I got a chance to put my hands in so many places and make connections on my own, whether it was through, I'll tell you this, I tried my first federal criminal case as first, second, and third chair by myself when I was a second year.
What?
Yes, ma'am, I did. But that allowed me to get into the federal courts and know the judges here. And one of the magistrates who used to appoint me to criminal cases, she married my husband and I almost 23 years ago. I mean, just developed all these wonderful relationships. So, ideally you would think that, I'd just stay on here and, maybe become a partner, but God had another plan. What happened was our firm got a big contract with county. And so we became, counsel for the county. And that led other people to kind of sniff around, and we were acquired by a large firm. So
What?
that took me from being in a very small firm to being thrown into an environment that was so unfamiliar to me. But I had to learn how to adapt, and, I just had to learn how to adapt. And that's what I'm talking about when I said at first I wasn't sure about going straight from law school or, into the workforce, or straight from college to law school to workforce, because there were a lot of things that I did not know. And it taught me a lot. Yeah. So I would say that after I was at the large firm, it was a lot. It was a lot. The dynamics, everything from billing to entertaining summer interns to, the things that were available for you, resources that were available for you. It was overwhelming even.
Wow.
So funny, my husband, we used to pray in the morning before I went to, and we would get together, we pray, and he'd hold my hand. Every once in a while he would pray, and Lord, I just pray that Sharon gets her own firm, because I was, by my friends' eyes, even by my eyes and society's eyes, I was prospering. I was at this nice job, and I had, my paycheck, and I had pay, and I had security, but nothing is really ever secure.
Right.
Say that, my husband took his time praying, owning my own law firm, over me when I resisted it. Because, I grew up at a time kind of between generations, but it was very important for people to have security and stability. You want to get a job, you work at the post office. You want to get a job, you stay there 30 years and they'll give you your watch. You want to, and, just a totally different mindset. And I didn't come from a long line of entrepreneurs, so I didn't really see people doing it. I just knew that I needed security, and this was, I was learning, I was meeting people. It checked off all the boxes, but it just wasn't the best fit.
So then you leave this firm and go where?
The first place I went was my garden, because the garden is the place where I get my hands in the dirt and I commune with God. And I just prayed about it and prayed about it. And if I tell you that I went there, and when I felt like, okay, maybe I have a direction, there's this job opportunity that popped up for a Fortune 100 company. And what they were asking for was a person with lesser experience, a person probably who didn't look like me. They didn't say it, but what I'm saying is at that time, and I don't know how it is now, but at at that time, when you were looking at job opportunities, they would say, and only apply if you've gone to these law schools, and only apply if you're in this percentage of these law schools. And you know how it
Yeah.
translates.
Yeah,
Not you,
sure.
not coming from Thurgood Marshall School of Law. So for whatever reason, I just went for it and I applied. And the general counsel and the assistant general counsel, they were like, we wanted someone different. And
They said that?
yes. Yes. They wanted someone different because the general counsel was from a different state, maybe a more liberal state. Okay.
Okay.
And my assistant general counsel had a different lifestyle as well. And they were tired of people handing their buddies over into these, it's a Fortune 100 company. So they were tired of getting the same over and over again. And they liked my conversation. They liked that I was well-rounded, because when I was at the smaller firm, like I said, I was doing federal work, I was doing family work, I was doing eminent domain, I was doing I was doing everything. So when I went into that firm, they saw me and they saw my court experience, my trial experience. There were partners who hadn't even been to trial before, but I had all of this experience, so they put me in a department where I could do more and more and more. Well, this particular company that I was interviewing for, they had a need in many different lanes. It was an entertainment company, and they had things going on all the way from contracts to venues to artist contracts, and they had a lot. But I was a litigator that could adapt because I had seen so many things and had my hands in so many places. So I got offered the job. And if I tell you that, let's say it was September 30th that I left the firm, my start day was October 1st, exactly 1 year later. It was meant to be. Complete 1 year. And I went there, and it was an odd experience. I remember sitting in the interview, asking what time I needed to be at work. And in the firm, a large firm especially, you have FaceTime, you have, you got to spend this time doing this. They got to see you, So you got to be there early in the morning because they want to see who's staying late. The politics. The politics. So I asked my assistant general counsel, I said, what time should I be at work? She's just like, well, any time before 10 should be fine. Did you say? And then I was like, well, what's the dress code? He's like, wear wherever you want to. We were in a much more, so I had to try to develop a personal style because it had always been black, brown, gray. Yeah. Black, gray, black, brown. Gray. And a little white, just right. And so I had coworkers, colleagues who would come in, Bermuda shorts, and I had colleagues that painted their walls of their office, some who would be blaring music. It was just such a culture shock for me. But I was down. I remember another time I used to have to travel to different locations because we were hiring outside counsel in our different locations for different purposes. And someone came to me and they were like, Sharon, why are you always flying coach? Why don't you ever stay at the, high end? I won't name them. And I was like, I can do that? My gosh, it was amazing. And the people were so wonderful and generous in a different way that I had experienced in my previous career. They were wonderful, and they were generous to the point that even when I went into my job, I knew that it was for someone who had less experience. Therefore, the salary was going to be less than I had been making, whatever. And I didn't care. But I did my job. I think I did my job well. And then I got called into the general counsel's office maybe 3 months after I had been there. And I was like, oh my gosh, what happened? This is horrible. What's going to happen? And I sat down and he said, Sharon, you've exceeded our expectation. Here's a check for $5,000 and we're going to bump your salary up to what it should be based on your experience in your work.
What?
Does that?
What? Thank you, sir. Let me go cash this check before you change your mind.
Amazing. It was an amazing experience. Still have relationships with many of my colleagues, but as corporate America does its thing, our company was sold off, or it spun off into another direction, and they moved
Here
the
we go
headquarters.
again.
Yeah, they moved the headquarters from Houston to another city, another large city. And
Gotcha.
I could not ask my husband, with his family obligations, I could not ask him to pick up everything so I could chase this
Yeah.
feeling, this experience, this opportunity. And I understood in my heart that maybe it was meant to be temporary, because I needed to be shown the different side of the coin. I needed to, this is rigidity, this is compassion. And I needed to be able to see both sides of that. So after that happened, a friend of mine was like, hey, I know this attorney. He's looking for, a senior attorney to kind of help him. He had a different type of litigation practice, but litigation still, and it's not that hard to pivot. There's some training you have to do, but it's not that hard to pivot. So I went to his firm, and like I said, I was a senior associate, and then over time, we hired some other associates to come in. Well, things were going.
So when you got there, it was just you and him?
Yes. Yes,
So
and a paralegal and an assistant. Yes, so there were 4 of us in the office together. Yes.
It sounds like another shock. Like you went from the 4-partner firm and being loved on and cared for, then you go to this new experience where it's Bermuda shorts and color walls and music.
Right. Well, the four lawyers. Then we go to the big mega, hundreds of lawyers.
Right.
Then we go to the Bermuda shorts and the laid back atmosphere, and to another firm environment. And I did not necessarily have the relationships already there, but we built relationships in that firm. Of course, it's not going to compare to that first firm because I literally grew up with the partners' kids. I was at their house all the time. But it was still, an environment where we got along, and I'm still friends with my colleagues from there as well.
Of course. So then you get to this firm. This guy's looking for an associate. So you're the senior associate. Y'all started to hire. Things are good. This is now sounding like the track to, hey, I'm now going to be maybe a partner at this one. Were you thinking that at all?
Well, yeah, we had some conversations because honestly, I think he was at the point where, he was trusting me more and more, and seeing that he could trust me and seeing that he had a long career. He didn't want to do this, forever, and maybe he could entrust it. And we had those conversations as well. One Saturday, I was at a birthday party. I'll never forget it. I was at a birthday party and I got a phone call, and something had happened. The partner who hired me, the man who owned the firm, got sick suddenly and passed away.
All of that in that one Saturday phone call?
Yes.
Sheesh.
Yes. So didn't really know what was going to happen. I talked to the other attorneys at the firm, and I was like, he would want us to keep up, because we thought that, especially with the type of work we did, we thought that the work that we could continue to do, it was just going to keep building and building and building, and we'd be all right.
Yeah.
No, we weren't all right. Long story short, I don't know how to put this in a politically correct way, but we were all fired.
But so you got to clarify. Owner is deceased.
Yes.
You seem to be the second in command. You're talking to the other legal staff, the people that are doing the actual work. But somewhere somebody comes and says you're fired.
Yes. So we all got an email at the same time from a family member of the person, and said effectively, immediately, you're all terminated.
And that was it.
And that was it. That was it. No nothing. No pay, no severance package. No, that was
not even like a 2-week notice, like, hey, I'm going to have to close firm because A, B, C, D.
No. We had survived during that time on promises, and no, it didn't happen. So I I'm trying to figure it out. I'm like, what's going on? You know, my mind is in a whirlwind. The economy at that time wasn't the greatest at all. And I was like, you know,
What year was this? Do you remember like around what year?
I can't remember off the top of my head. I really, I probably have blacked it out. But I can't remember at this particular time what year it was. But, you know, I was in a position where I could breathe for a second, you know, and, you know, I was looking for a job. But again, I was seeing all these crazy advertisements of, you know, if you bring all your own clients and, you know, don't work for money and we'll give you an office space. How about that? It's like, no, thank you. No insurance, no benefits, nothing. We'll just let you sit over here. Just bring the client list to us.
Yes, of course. We'll take them. We'll take care of them for you.
Exactly. So I kind of sat around. I probably felt sorry for myself a little bit. I probably panicked a lot, you know, just a lot. So I went back into my nesting phase where, you know, and of course, my friends loved this. I was cooking a lot and I was, you know, making things pretty around my house. I was just doing things just to not think about what am I going to do? What am I going to do? So not so far off from there, you know, I would get a phone call from a friend or a colleague or someone that I'd worked on a opposing counsel from another case. And they'd be like, hey, Sharon, this is a matter. I can't take it. This person needs help. Can you? And I'd be like, oh, okay. And hey, Sharon, I have this, I'm conflicted out. Can you? Okay. Well, whatsoever, whatever. So one day I decided to go ahead and, I might have done this before. I went ahead and I got, you know, my name set up and I got, you know, a business card or two, but I really didn't think of it as a law firm. It was just,
Business card or two.
Business card or two. I was just like, I'll just have it here because it's not going to be anything. Well, mind you, I was surprised when I woke up and I had a full-fledged firm.
Wait a minute. Wait. No, ma'am. So you're getting calls. Were you getting the same type of calls, or is it like at this point you're a general practitioner?
General practitioner, because people knew that. And this is one of the things that I learned when I worked in a large firm space. They want you as a client to have as much available to you in that house so that you don't have to leave that house ever. Yeah. So when they had a mergers and acquisition client, or their main contact was going through, you know, something dealing with the family, they knew that I had that experience. So they would connect me with them and I could help them with their family law matter. Or when they had their son, you know, who was, or their client who is very prominent in, you know, politics or whatever, whose son got in an accident or had a drinking, they knew that I had done the criminal work. So they come to me. They like to keep everything in-house. So I got a chance, you know, to utilize all of my past experience that way. So I had so many connections in that way. So people were calling me for family. People were calling me for, you know, estate planning. They were calling me for all of these things that I had touched throughout my my career. And again, I was that girl who never wanted to be in a job where I knew everything because I get bored easily. Gotcha. And so people knew that I know Sharon's helping my mom with this, or Sharon's done this for my coworker. And it just became, you know, I will tell you, I have never advertised.
Love it.
I have never advertised. People call me and they need me and I'm like, okay, what can I do? Now, eventually I woke up not so long ago and realized that, oh my gosh, if I only tended to this garden the way that I need to, it could be something even better. And so I don't say that I was launching a practice ever. I think I was kind of tripped and pushed into a practice, if you will. But I knew at a certain point that I needed to get it together. And I knew it at the point where I was introduced by some dear friends to this study group. And mind you, I'm the oldest person in the study group. There are all these brilliant, wonderful minds. They teach me every time I am before them and in their presence. And I looked at the way that they spoke about their businesses, spoke about their goals, spoke about their planning, and I was like, Tell me more. And I have been learning so much. I love their spirit. I love the tenacity. I love thinking outside of the box. I love pushing my own boundaries because, like I said, first firm, pantyhose. Second firms, you got your joggers on with your top.
Right.
Via Zoom or whatever. And I think that another thing that I had to overcome. Well, there are two things that I had to overcome when I was met with this group of young people who have been helping me along my way. One thing was fear, and the other thing was shame. Okay, so what if I do put 100% into this and it fails? If I formalize this too much and it fails, does it mean that I'm a failure? If I, put myself out there and I don't get the response that I would want, does that mean that I made a disconnect somewhere and it's too late for me? Because here we are, many, many moons into my career. What if it is too late to start over? Okay.
So for the people that are listening, how many years, if you don't mind sharing, how long have you been licensed?
I have been licensed since November of 1996.
96, baby.
Yes. 1996. Okay. So you can tell the world was different. It was a different place.
Yeah,
a lot has happened. So there was that fear, and then there was also the shame, because I was taught that in order to hang your own shingle, you needed to have a big fancy office, and you had to have somebody ringing you up in the lobby, and you had to have an assistant, you had to have a paralegal, and you had to have a $1,000,000,000 in the bank, and then and so when I started casually practicing from my home, that was not really a thing. And so when people were like, well, I want to come to your office and meet you, and it's just like, no, you can't. I'm not having you in my home. That's just not going to happen. But then, earlier, people will be like, you don't have an office? And that's where the shame came in. But I knew me also. I tend to work a lot. So even when I was at the large law firm, it was nothing for me to get home, really, really late after midnight or later.
Gotta fix that.
The politics of, you work here and everybody's watching you, and then we have special issues that we deal with, you have to. So I was like, do I really want to go out and get an office where I'm going to be walking to the car at night by myself, sleepy, drowsy driving or what have you? Do I want to do that? And so I decided, I'm just going to have to push through, and they can think of me what they will. So
I love it. I love how you overcame that, and that you just, because you do, like, we all have fear and shame. And it's interesting. I would imagine that the group that you're in, you coming in, being a seasoned attorney, was intimidating for them. It's like, oh, okay. Coming in, she's been licensed since 96, okay, let me make sure I'm on my A game. And, we have all these internal battles that will either prevent us, if we allow it, they'll stop us from actually taking the step forward. And then think about all the people that need your service, that have benefited from your service. They would have missed out on that if you actually allowed that fear and that shame to speak louder than who you already were. Like when you were saying the shame part and the fear, I'm like, it's bananas how that can be internal, but you were already taking cases, people were already calling you, and referrals work because you've done a good job. People do not refer when you are trash. They refer when you're doing a good job. So you're already winning, you're already succeeding, and then you come into a space that made you question that.
Yes. Yeah, I definitely came into a space that made me question that. But, honestly, those were some personal demons that I needed to deal with on my own anyway. Gotcha. I remember remember, was it 2 years ago or 3 years ago? I was just going through it. There was just so many moving parts in my life, and, just dealing with all the things that life deals you, whether it's your parents or just everything all at once. And so for my birthday, I said I was going to give myself a therapy session. So I found this wonderful therapist.
Yes.
And we hit it off. She was only virtual, which worked for me because I didn't have to take time to
Right.
And after I spoke with her that first time, I was like, okay. And I start to get a little bit of something. And this is around the same time that I was meeting with this group of young people. There were some other people in different areas that had come into my life. And I just felt like the best way to describe it is I felt like I was pregnant with promise, pregnant with hope.
Yeah.
I was like, what do I do with this feeling? What is it? I think I'm almost at the point right now where I am birthing and I'm prepared for birth. And if I'm not completely prepared, I have these beautiful doulas around me who are coaching me.
I love that. Oh, I love that. So you didn't officially launch, you gradually grew into your firm ownership. And so we talked about like the things that kind of held you back or maybe slowed you down from the beginning. If you had to look back at launching your own, at that portion of your legal career, what do you wish you would have done sooner, if anything?
I think one of the things that I struggle with to this day is how haphazardly it happened. I would have been more organized. I would have had, a vision board, if you will. I would have had, these are the steps I need to take. These are the priorities that I need to make. I would have done it in that way so that it wasn't so hard. It's easier when you have the number of clients on your hand, 10 clients or under.
Yeah.
To get your situation, your filing, your protocols, your systems. It's easier when you don't have that many than when you have this many, and now it's like wrangling cats.
Yes.
So if I could have gotten everything under control and not approached it so haphazardly. And another thing that happened is it looked like my career was on a certain trajectory. But a lot of my friends, those that I wasn't working with as, coworkers in a particular situation, they had gone another route. So they had, their firms, or they had hung their shingles or whatever. So by the time I'm teetering out here, like, okay, guys, I'm getting these cases, this is building, what I do, they're smack dab into their growth because they've been doing this for 10, 15 years or however long. Yeah. And so I could have, but I felt some kind of way trying to pull them in and say, okay, so tell me the alphabet again. How do you spell cat? And they're up here doing dissertations. I felt like I was so far behind the trajectory that, these are things that they have been doing day in and day out, like I said, for 10, 15 years, maybe 20 years. And I'm like, okay, so about that phone, because I had spent so much time practicing law, but not practicing ownership. I had spent so much time learning how to properly produce this product for this particular group, but not how to navigate any of those things that are important when you have ownership in the firm. So,
hey, that's key. And I'm glad you brought that up too. With the firms that you were at prior to, did you ever have any type of ownership interest? Was that ever offered to you, incentive-wise?
Incentive-wise, you mean like bonuses or what?
No, actual ownership in the firm. So you're dedicating and hey, this is your path to, profit sharing.
Right. It never materialized. I'll say
Gotcha.
It never materialized. But, even then, even when those conversations were had, it was still almost like a dangling carrot. Okay.
Oh.
When are we going to eat? When are we going to eat? Because it's like, okay, well, that's in the future. Okay, well, let me keep, smashing now. Right. Let me keep doing that. But it just never came to fruition.
But it seems like it seems very clear that as God does, He wastes nothing. So all of the experience, the different firms, the different cases, receiving referrals, doing a good job for the people. Tell me how that has affected the way that you run your firm now. Now, because you saw the 4-partner firm, you saw the laid back firm, you saw the growth and being swallowed up by this corporate, you saw the one-man band, and you get brought in and then dismissed, terminated once he passes. How does all of that affect how you are growing your firm now?
Well, I think that the good thing is I'm very careful to connect with people who come in maybe on a temporary basis. Some, have not necessarily worked out, but I try to come in understanding what they're looking for and their experience being a part of what I'm doing from the employment side. Okay.
Gotcha.
As far as my clients, I try to meet them with a level of compassion, and I try to guide them in that if I know I can't do it at this time, I know who can, and I'm going to make sure you're in good hands so that you don't feel like somebody's cash cow and they're just milking you all day long and you're not getting the results that you need.
Gotcha.
So I just look at things, and I probably should look at it more like hardline business, but I just have a softer touch. But I think that they appreciate that softer touch. And, sometimes I got to yank them back into reality, but I do it firmly but gently because, that's just the way that I approach it, because not everything is on fire all day at the same time.
Exactly. Yeah. Even though they call acting like it is, it's not.
Right.
It's
right.
not.
Yeah.
So would you do it all again?
With the right tools? Absolutely. Because there is something that people talk about all the time is work-life balance.
Yeah.
I've never really known what that was, but in this day and age, I'm so happy that we're in this place where we can, still spend time with our parents or take vacations or what have you, and you don't have to be sitting at your desk in some cold, sterile office, for 12 years. I want to be smarter. I don't want to work harder. I want to work smarter so that I can enjoy the things in life. Because one thing I didn't say is when I was at the larger firm and some of the smaller firms, I didn't take vacations. I didn't see my family. I barely saw my husband because I was working, because back then the mindset was, I got to be hustling. I got to be, and especially being a woman, a Black woman, I had to earn my place. I had to prove why I was there, what have you. And, I came upon the realization that since it wasn't such an accommodating environment, there could be consequences if I didn't. Excuse me, I sacrificed those, family reunions or trips with my friends. I sacrificed for a long time and did not do those things. And then when I was finally in a position where I could do those things, I was like, imagine this. Some holidays and everything, and y'all are out there kicking it. I can do this too. Okay, so I still, I'm not gonna lie, I'm not completely healed yet. I still travel with my laptop and things, just in case an emergency. Yeah, I'm in recovery.
Okay.
And as soon as I can get some better systems in place, I would, if I knew back then what I know now, and had the support and the resources and, the things that I needed to kind of guide me, I wouldn't have hesitated. I don't know what took me this long. I really don't know what took me this long. And it took one of my young colleagues that I was telling you about to kind of shed light on, gosh, it's a blessing that it's 11:30 on a Tuesday and I'm walking in the sunshine because I want to. Because I want to.
Yeah.
Gosh, well, I'm not going to go to such and such function because I don't want to.
I don't want to. And nobody can make me.
I get to do what I want to do and not what I have to do. And that in and of itself is so liberating. Sometimes we get bogged down with the life when life is lifing. It's a
Yeah.
privilege that I'm able to go to the doctor with my mom or dad in the middle of
Yeah.
the day. You know, it's
Yeah.
a blessing to be able to, go pick up my dog from the vet in the middle of the day. It's a blessing to go on a lunch date with my husband because it's
Oh.
Thursday. I mean, that's a blessing that
Yeah.
I wouldn't have necessarily if I was in a more formal environment working for someone because you're
Yeah.
there to fill their need.
Yeah. You
Don't
are.
get it twisted.
You
Don't get
are.
it twisted because guess what? And I don't want to sound ugly, but if something were to happen and you drop, I don't know why that happened. If something were to happen and you were to uh, drop out and end up in the hospital for several months, they find some way to replace you.
Yeah. And the other thing, and I had a really close friend who went through this during COVID times because it affected attorneys too. We are human, we get sick. And this particular friend had gone to the hospital. This was like early on COVID too. You remember, like people went to the hospital and they were cut off from life. Like nobody could
Yes.
see them, nobody could talk to them,
Right.
nobody even knew what was going on. And as soon as she was released, clients were like, "Okay, so about my case though."
Absolutely.
Like she almost just died, and you're like, "So about my case."
Right. Right. And, not only uh, that culture is even encouraged sometimes when you're in bigger spaces, more
Absolutely.
formalized settings or whatever.
Yep.
They're like, okay, get back on the clock for me because I need to
Yeah.
meet my goals, my
Yep.
partnership things, or what have you. And so that can be very, very harsh. I remember, women back in the day
Mm-hmm.
um, holding off pregnancy because they needed to make partner, but
Oh.
then once they made partner, the pressure was there that your office might not be here when you come back from your leave, even though
Get the
you're
heck
entitled
out
to.
of
Yeah,
here.
and people were rushing back to get back in that seat to have their faces seen or what have you. So
Just so you could get in the rat race to probably do an area of practice. Hopefully you enjoy it, right? But to do this area of practice, to hope that people see you, to hope that they're going to pay you what you worth, but nobody ever, ever, ever will. And
no,
then you're hoping to climb this ladder that nobody can see. And then the ladder to what? To more
right,
work?
right, absolutely.
The 80, 90-hour work weeks? Yeah, no thanks.
I don't want that. I
Yeah.
don't want that. I don't want that. The only no, I can't even imagine wanting that. But yeah, we have to take this time right now to reinvent, reimagine, implement different ways of thinking
Yeah.
because the world out there, they need us. They need
Yeah.
attorneys and they need us to be at our best and they need us to
Yeah.
be at our healthiest and they need us to be the most alert and attentive that we can possibly be because if you burn it all down and you're in the house,
Ugh,
what does that mean? You
it's
burned
gone.
it. It's
Yeah.
gone.
Yeah.
And what does that mean if you have children or a spouse or other family members who are depending on you? What does that mean? So we have to reimagine it. We have to implement some different things so that we can live our best lives too. Because I don't know about you, but God didn't send me here to be a slave to anybody,
Right.
you know?
Exactly. Yep.
So
So it sounds like what you're saying, after being in practice since 1996, you can still reimagine that it's not too late.
it's not too late. It's not too late. Actually, with this that I'm doing right now and listening to these awesome podcasts from, I don't know if you've ever heard of the Attorney Cheat Code. Crazy. Feel like getting up and doing a little holy dance. I feel like
Yes.
I can yet go on. I feel like it can get better. I feel like I can shape it to be, I have the confidence that I can shape it to be what I want and need it to be for me. That might
Yeah.
not look like this person's success or that person's success, but for me. And, I'm starting to value sitting down with myself and saying, Sharon, is this what you want? Is this the client you're going to take, or do you not want to be bothered? And it's on me to decide. And what does it look like for me? And I love it. All of these things have happened at such a wonderful, wonderful time. I told you about the birthday that I gifted myself the sessions with the therapist, and then I had some other people come into my life and offer me and pour into me. But my hairdresser, love her, love her, love her. We had this love for this book called The Alchemist.
Okay, I've
And
heard of that.
yes, one thing that she said to me one time, the first time that we actually met together, was the same thing that the therapist had said to me in that session. And both of us, it was the same thing, and it came from the same book, The Alchemist. And it
Okay.
says, the universe is conspiring in your favor. The universe is conspiring. The universe wants to help you. It wants you to prosper. It wants you to be your best. Stop looking for these things elsewhere that are just distractions, because it's all here to help you lift up and prosper. It's great. And so I have a t-shirt that says that.
Oh, wow. I love that. I love that. I mean, drop the mic, fade to black. Like, how do you even go on past that? This, I hope that the people that are listening, the people that are watching are inspired, for our seasoned saints is what I call the people, right? For our seasoned attorneys that are practicing law, and you're doing it in a way that you don't want to, hopefully by hearing and seeing you, that they are inspired, that it is not too late. Like, you have so much to offer your clients, other attorneys, staff, paralegals, whomever. You are a wealth of knowledge. You are necessary. We need you. And I am just honored that you shared this time with me today. Do you have any closing thoughts or any inspiration that you want to share before we go?
Well, I just want to, if you start getting those negative pulls and those negative thoughts, dig deep and ask why, and then attack that. Because that is the thing that's going to prevent you, whether it's in your parenthood, whether it's in your job, whether it's in your, whatever area of life, pinpoint that and say, well, why is that feeling there? And what do I need to do to overcome it so that you can put it behind you and progress?
Wow. That's all I got to say to that. Thank you, Sharon. I appreciate your time. And thank you so much for joining
Absolutely.
us on the Attorney Cheat Code podcast.
Thank you for having me.
I told you it was going to be good. And I'm sure you did not think that Sharon was going to tell you all of that her path to firm ownership took so many twists and turns and ups and downs and lefts and rights. But she is at the place now that she is enjoying practice. She is building a firm around her life versus the firm making her do things that she does not want to do. I hope her story has inspired you in the way that it has for me. I know that I feel inspired and encouraged and energized to press on. And make sure that you check out this next episode if you're looking for some tools and tips and tricks to make sure that you are doing what you're supposed to as far as technology is concerned. Check out this episode right here, and I will see you on the next episode of the Attorney Cheat Code Podcast.